Mhm. Hi, and welcome back to Alicia's Place, where we talk about pain management, energy and Reiki healing, and also holistic nutrition and eating. So today I wanted to talk about, I wrote it down here, why is feeling pain important? This actually came up the other day when I was speaking to some colleagues, and you know, it's funny because we tend to, like, our society is kind of geared towards getting rid of the pain or getting out of pain or doing whatever we can to not be in pain. And it's interesting because pain is kind of connected to fear. So there's a fear around being in pain, and when fear is like activated in our space, we tend to go unconscious to a lot of things. So, for example, you're having starting to have back pain, and you don't know why, you don't know where it's coming from. You may not be super physically active, or you may be super physically active, and you're like, hey, I'm in really good shape, but why am I having back pain? And a lot of times, it's either due to posture. It's also due to repetitive motions or actions that you do, like at work, sports, or hobbies that you participate in. There's also kind of a little bit of a lie out there that you have, in order to deal with pain, you have to take, medication. And with the whole opioid crisis, it's just creating our society to be dependent on stuff outside of ourselves, rather than realizing that, hey, my body is this amazing organism that is able to actually reverse and heal itself if given the space. So I like to help with letting people know that you want to feel pain, because that means that your brain is still communicating with that area of the body. When you turn that off, yes, it helps your brain to like conserve, resources, so to say, but the opposite and the downside to that is, you become desensitized in certain areas, and so you'll compensate a lot of times. And over the course of, you know years, it usually accumulates, and then there's some type of acute injury that then turns into chronic. And the conversation between the brain and the body is a very, it's not really talked about. And I noticed that, especially when I've done body being communication, so looking at a person's spirit communicating with the body, and vice versa, the body communicating with the spirit. There's a lot of times there's a big gap there. And when you're essentially taking those medications, you're just allowing that gap to get wider and wider. You'd be surprised. I was working on a patient yesterday, and so kind of the scenario, they are an office worker. They've been working as an office worker for over 20 years. So they were reporting and letting me know just a few like things that they've been experiencing. So one of the major ones that we worked on yesterday was pain in their middle finger, especially in this area here is where they were having pain. And they were telling me, I massage it, like they were doing like self massage. They were trying to work it out of the hand. And I had to educate her and let her know that the reality is that that pain pattern that you're experiencing in that finger is actually coming from the forearm, and primarily the flexors, which are the anterior part of the arm. Okay, so or the front part of the arm. And she was amazed by how many trigger points I was able to help release. And I worked on that area. So her whole session was about an hour. It was a 90 minute session, which is typical for a session, and which is it equates to an hour and a half. So I focused, I did some work on, her other arm as well, but I focused mainly on the arm or hand that she was having the trouble with. I spent a good about, I would say maybe 30 minutes on that area, and was able to really work through the layers. Now, talking about layers, it gets pretty deep, guys. It gets pretty deep. So, obviously we have the skin, and then we have the fat layer, but then under that there's fat, there's a layer called fascia, and then our muscles, and then the muscles, they are layered on top of each other as well. So really having to get down deep to her primary flexors of the forearm, and getting to like pronator teres, which was one that was very tender on her. What else? I would say the digitorum superfundus was very tight on her as well. Palmaris as well is what I worked on, and a little bit of the extenders on the other side of the arm, but not as much. It was mostly the anterior part, and so really worked with that. I want to begin recording like bits of my session so that you guys can see how this session is how it's a little bit different than a traditional kind of Swedish session. There is like Swedish included in it, but then getting down to the detailed work, the work that the patient has come in for. And during this session, I am essentially communicating with the brain. So beginning to the brain and the nervous system. So really helping to start to send those signals to the brain to let it know, like, hey, this area is still part of you. It's still part of the body. And for that communication line to reactivate. And when that communication line starts to reactivate, the brain is able to start regulating, especially if that area was previously injured, but maybe not even necessarily injured, but had trigger points, like the patient I was working with yesterday. And when you start to create that communication, it's like a chain effect. It's very, I would say, magical almost. The communication that happens between the brain and the body as you begin to have that person be aware. It's amazing because I'll barely be pressing on an area, and the person's like, "Oh my gosh, that's a 10," because I during a session, like, we are in communication, like you're not sitting there with your eyes closed and falling asleep. Like, it's like we're communicating. I'm asking you, how does it feel here? What does this feel like to you on a scale of 1 to 10 on like a pain scale? And if it's anything over an 8, I'll kind of back off, because I don't want to alarm the brain. There's a fine line between alarming the brain and making it think that It's something is happening that shouldn't be happening versus that good hurt where it's like sending the signal to the brain like, hey, this area is still here, and just kind of sending that hello back and forth. And so yeah, so feeling pain is definitely something you want. You don't want to just numb everything out, because when you numb everything out, it diminishes your quality of life, um, and it starts to affect a lot of other things, a lot of your internal organs and things of that nature. So I will head off. I hope you guys are having a beautiful Sunday. I'm about to go play in my garden and pot some of my new baby plants that have started to bloom. So stay tuned. We're going to just continue this conversation around pain management and the different alternative methods that you have available to you, that haven't really been expressed or haven't really been shared or promoted, because especially if you stay in the United States, as we all know, there's this stigma around massage therapy that, those places are sleazy, that they're only, they're only there to rub you down and give you just relaxation. But in reality, it should be a part of your healthcare picture. It should be part of your healthcare regimen, because no other modality really helps you to release toxins the way massage therapy does, in that natural holistic way. Well, again, I'm out, and you guys have a beautiful Sunday. Peace.